back to Who's to Know. Tonight for dinner we're going to be making nachos. As you can see, the kitchen is still in the remodeling process. We've got the top cabinets painted and the lower cabinets painted. The doors have been off, the drawers are out, and it's still in process. But we still have to eat something for dinner. So we're going to be making nachos, and first I want to run down just a couple of the different options of what you could do with nachos. I think when you think of nachos, you think your base as being chips. So you probably definitely need chips and some sort of cheese. It can be different kinds of cheese though, so we'll talk a little bit about cheese. And from there, you could have meat on it or you could not have meat on it. So I've got the options written down so I don't leave anything out. But we got chips, and then from there you can have your different kinds of meat. So I've actually had leftover steak before that I've cubed up and put on there. You can do ground chicken, you can do ground beef, you could do ground turkey. Ground turkey's not my favorite. What I'm gonna do, I've got some leftover taco meat that was in the freezer, so I'm gonna use that. That's your meats, and then from there you have a bunch of different vegetables you could pick. I usually like to put lettuce, tomato, you could put onions, raw or cooked down onions, sour cream, nacho cheese, shredded cheese, black olives, corn, black beans, refried beans, jalapeños, pickled or raw, serrano peppers. You could do sliced avocado, or you could just mash up some avocado and put guac on there. Salsa, pico, or green salsa. I think it's called salsa verde. Don't quote me on that. I didn't take Spanish. The queso, that's another thing. Another thing I forgot was you could put roasted red peppers on there. That'd be pretty good. Another meat you could also do would be pulled pork. I've never done a pulled pork nachos, so I'm not exactly sure what other kind of flavors would be good with it, but you know, it's something you can try out and kind of experiment on your own, or even look up other recipes on the internet as far as what do people put on pulled pork tacos. Make chips, pulled pork, like cooked onions, cooked green bell peppers, and queso spread over that. That might be really good. So again, there's as many different toppings as there are. It's kind of close to infinite. That's how many different variations of nachos you can have. With most of the vegetables, like the lettuce, tomato, that would be stuff you want to put on after they come out. The guac would be something you want to put on after. I'd put the salsa on after too, because I like the contrast of the hot nachos with the cool salsa. But if you like heated salsa, then certainly put it on there. We're just gonna get started. We're gonna make the nachos. Tonight what I'm gonna be using is, I have a can of refried beans that I need to use, ground beef, lettuce, tomato. I've got some nacho cheese that I'm gonna pour on it, and sour cream. And we're gonna call that good. I actually don't have shredded Mexican style cheese, so instead I'm just gonna use nacho cheese. The nice thing about nachos is to have a contrast of textures. For me, the lettuce and the tomato is gonna give it like a little bit of a crunch and kind of make it a little bit lighter. Where if you just had like cheese, nachos, and cheese, you know, nacho cheese all over it, it would just kind of be like all the same texture. So that's something to think about when you're picking out maybe what you want on your nachos. The other thing I like about nachos is, depending on how many people you're trying to serve, you can really tailor make the nachos. Like tonight, I'm probably just gonna make a very small portion because I'm just eating the nachos, but I've made this entire pan of nachos before to feed 5 people. So we're gonna get started making some nachos. I've got my oven preheated to 350. I've lined my baking sheet with aluminum foil, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. It just makes the cleanup a little bit easier. So it's up to you. I'm using refried beans, so what I'm gonna do is take some individual chips and actually kind of put the refried beans on here like this. This is a little bit of a tedious process. This is, for me, the best way that I've found to get it on there. If you wanted to, what you could do is add some water to your refried beans, make them a little bit soupier, and they might pour, but I haven't ever tried that method, but you could. So I'm not even covering the whole thing. I'm just putting a little bit on there because there's gonna be enough on there. When I make nachos, I also like to put some extra chips on here. I don't like to just lay them out in a single layer like this. I kind of like to stack them up, so I'll put some you know, chips in here that don't have any refried beans on them. Some of these smaller chips we'll just do like this. And you just kind of stack them up however you want. These are your nachos. You make them however you want. Unless, of course, you're sharing, and then maybe you have to make them how somebody else wants. But in that case, what you could do is you could make nachos on this side for you, whatever it is that you want, black olives, whatever you like. Then on this side, you make the nachos for somebody else who maybe doesn't want something on there like black olives. So that's the other nice thing about nachos, is that you can get your toppings kind of set up, whatever it is you want, and just lay that out, and people can make even their own nachos. So it's very flexible. So this is probably plenty of nachos for me, just one person. I got it carried away. So there we've got our chips on there with refried beans. All right, now that we've got our refried beans on here, we're gonna put our taco meat on here. The reason I'm using this taco meat is it was in the freezer because it was taco meat that actually got over seasoned. And because I didn't have any extra beef to kind of cut through all the seasoning that was on there, I just froze it. And so I'm just gonna use it very sparingly on here. So that's probably all I'm gonna use. All right, I've got my meat on here, my ground beef. So now I'm gonna put some of this nacho cheese on here, just like this. Again, I'm using this because I don't have any shredded cheese. And so I'm just gonna kind of glob this around our nacho cheese that we're gonna be using, since I don't have any shredded cheese. You could use both nacho cheese and shredded cheese if you want. I just don't have any shredded cheese, so I'm just using the nacho cheese tonight. So as you can tell, kind of what I was talking about varying the texture. Also, something you might want to think about is varying the look of the nachos. That's where our lettuce and the tomato we're gonna bring out are really gonna liven this up. Right now it's kind of just bland. But once we get some of that on there, also we're gonna add some sour cream. You could add sour cream now if you wanted to, if you want to eat your sour cream warm, or once the nachos come out, you can put the cool sour cream on to kind of give it contrasting temperature between the hotness of the nachos and then the coolness of the lettuce, tomato, and the sour cream. And again, that's kind of the same thing. You could put the salsa on now if you like warm salsa, or you can leave it and put it on later. Toppings that I mentioned you can put on now, or you can leave them till later, except maybe like the lettuce and the tomato. Those probably wouldn't be good warm, and they'll wilt with the heat. We're gonna put it in 10-15 minutes, just until, if we had some shredded cheese on here, I would do it until it was bubbly. But all of this stuff is cooked, so all you're doing is just letting this kind of meld together and get warm. It's not actually cooking anything, so you can be a little loose with the time. My oven's at 350, and I'm gonna set a timer for 15 minutes. Okay, so our timer's going off, so we're gonna check our nachos. If you don't have shredded cheese that's bubbling, you could always kind of poke at it and see if it's warm. It's pretty warm. I'm gonna put it in a couple more minutes. All right, so the nachos have been in for 3 more minutes, so we're gonna call this good. And now we're ready to put on any additional toppings that we want to be served cold. We've got our sour cream we're gonna put on, our lettuce and tomato. And for the lettuce, I just used these whole romaine leaves that I got at Kroger. And I just used this part down here that's a little bit wider and a little bit crunchier. I just coarsely chopped up the parts at the bottom that look a little bit more like iceberg lettuce. You could get the bag of shredded iceberg lettuce. I find it just doesn't keep very well, and it can get extra soggy, so I tend to not like that. The other ingredient I forgot that you can put on the top is, of course, always hot sauce. Can go on anything that you want. So I'm just gonna use a spatula to just get a little portion of the nachos. We're just gonna kind of plate it like that. And it never hurts to have a couple extra chips on hand in case you feel like you don't have enough. Salsa on top, lettuce, because I like the nice cool crunch that it gives them. So kept this in the refrigerator while the nachos were cooking so that it'd be cool. Give that contrast of temperatures. Sour cream, just like that. So there we have our nachos. We got some chips, refried beans spread on the chips. We got ground beef, lettuce, tomato, sour cream, and a little bit of salsa underneath there. So there it is. So there you have it. We have a beautiful plate of nachos. This is probably one of the simplest versions of nachos that you can make. But again, like I talked about, there's many things you could put on here. I really like corn on here, but I didn't have any corn. Other people like black olives. It's really up to you about what you want to put on your nachos. Let us know what some of your favorite nacho toppings are. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. The hardest part about the kitchen being remodeled is that when I go to reach for the top drawer right here that's supposed to have the pot holders are not there. Also, the cat tries to crawl into the cabinets.